Morning everybody, fantastic to see you all again. So today we have James, Mas, Rick and me, and we're going to do a little bit of a Q&A. You might have seen on my Instagram account, I don't know when this is going to come out, a while back I asked for some questions and I've got a list of them here. We're going to go through them. First of all, I've got to address the fact that we've all got very strange footwear on. Crocs, sandals, socks and trainers.
I'm not sure that we've all got strange footwear.
No, okay. Okay, I have. The first question is, if there was one tip you could give a beginner in landscape photography, what would it be?
I think concentrate on process is what I would say, rather than outcome. Because so often, even when you've been taking photos for years, there are so many times where you go out and don't get a result. And I think if you're only focused on outcome, it only takes, 4, 5, 6 of those trips that don't kind of materialize into anything to get kind of downbeat. And when you're starting like any habit or hobby, you kind of need a run of enjoyable experiences to kind of turn it into a real something that you really enjoy.
Yeah,
so,
I think that's right. I think that's a good tip, isn't it? It's a bit like when we went out today. We enjoyed it, didn't we? But we were a bit unsure about where we were going to go. It wasn't like we had like a definite idea of what we were going to do. We got lucky with conditions, but it was enjoyable, wasn't it? And to be honest, for me, it's all about that experience. But at the end of the day, you want to get good photos out of it. As a beginner photography, it is about the process, but it is about the outcome as well, isn't it? Because you want to, at the end of the day, a beginner photography wants to get some good photos.
And it's easier said than done, but it's, one of the benefits, I suppose, of being in, for example, as we are now at a national park, is that you can enjoy kind of the vistas and just being in the outdoors and the sounds and whatever else.
Yeah, we should probably say that actually where we are, which is the most epic cottage in the world.
These poor people have got to watch us when we're looking out a window at a really nice mountain.
The view out of there is amazing.
There's so many to choose from. I would say learn post-processing. Digital editing, digital photographs. Of course you can take good photos without editing them, but it's such a big part of it. It was also a big part of it when they did analog photography, darkroom processing. But digital processing, whether you use Lightroom or any other softwares, learn how to do it, learn the sliders, figure out what you like to do. And then, of course, over the years, you refine your own process, but definitely learn to edit your photos already from the beginning.
Really
it's, for me at least, I usually say that it's half the process of me finishing my photos is the editing part.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realise that, when you take when you're a beginner and you take a photo, you put it on RAW, you're almost a little bit disappointed, aren't you, with your shots, because you look at it and you think it's quite flat or whatever, and especially if you compare it with a photo you've taken with your phone, which has had a lot of processing automatically being baked into it. So I think that's a good tip.
Also a lot of people, at least when they start out, they don't realize that raw photos are not meant to be the final product. It's not meant to be the final photo.
No.
You have to edit it.
Yeah.
No matter if you want to go in the artsy way, black and white or whatever, or you want to do a more realistic process.
Yeah.
It's always
been the same ever since Ansel Adams did negatives and stuff. Processing has always been a thing.
Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with not enjoying processing or editing, is there? If you want to do everything in camera, then by all means just go and shoot JPEG. Yeah. But there's a real case that editing and the enjoyment of editing, I think, can enhance your kind of love of the entire process.
You're more likely to develop a style through editing
definitely
as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think my top tip for somebody who's a beginner is light, really, and just thinking about going out when there's nice light, because certainly when I started photography, I went out and I shot quite a lot in the middle of the day, and you come back and you're thinking, oh, why are these photos not good? But light can make such a massive difference. Composition obviously is really important, but I think if you want to start to get reasonable photos that you're proud of, then just going out at sunrise and sunset will make a significant difference to your photography.
Yeah, someone once said to me, basically make all the elements and the atmosphere and the surroundings do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
So if you
that's
go
a really
out
good
when
tip, yeah.
when the light's good, or if it's dramatic, maybe it's windy, whatever it might be, if there's stuff going on, then you stand a much better chance of being able to tell a story with your camera.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be sunrise or sunset, does it? It could be in the middle of the day and it's stormy and there's some light breaking through, or it just could be that there's no light and that overcast nature of it just creates that real drama as well.
I was thinking about, like, for this first tip, whether I should say processing, or I would just say go out in rain and wind.
Just go out in whatever.
You don't want to do it,
Yeah.
but it delivers so many good photos, for sure.
And
that's
just
a really good tip.
That does remind me of something I was speaking about in a recent video, actually, is that so many people, when they're starting out in photography, they will start with, I suppose, what you'd call a photography budget, and they'll spend 90% of it on a camera.
Yeah.
And then they'll think, A, I've not got any money to go and shoot anymore. I can't go on any trips because I've spent all this money on a camera. But B, I'm too scared to go and use it because I've spent a huge amount of money on a camera. I don't want to go and use it in the wind and the rain.
Yeah.
And in reality, that is like a big part of what's going to help you get really good photos.
Yeah, and most cameras, no matter how much you've spent on it, are pretty well weather sealed.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, especially now, it's unlikely. Obviously you want to protect it, but it's unlikely you're going to do any major damage to it, I should think.
As long as you don't dip it in salt water. But for the most part, like, fresh water, rainwater, they can handle it.
Yeah.
I was going to say a good tip that I think that I used to do this, and I know a lot of people do, and it's playing your own game rather than comparing what you do to what other people do. And I think this ties into what James said about the process rather than the end result. If you go somewhere epic, the chances are you're not going to get a photo as good as someone else's one shot from that location. And I think you've just got to concentrate on, like James said, your own process rather than comparing it to what other people are doing.
Yeah.
It's so easy to do that as part of your research, looking on Instagram, whatever else. You see these amazing pictures, and 90% of the time, if you go to that place and try and take something, you're going to be faced with disappointment. So
just make small steps as well, isn't it? Don't expect to get those amazing results straight away, I think. But yeah, it's difficult though, isn't it? Because you want to do those shots. You as a beginner, you see these amazing shots, you think, oh, how do I get to that? And it seems like quite a big step, doesn't it? And I think there's lots of little baby steps to get to it.
Personally, I've always thought that every photographer, regardless of their experience level, 99% of their photos are pretty bang average, and 1% they're pretty proud of, regardless of how experienced you are. And I think the difference a lot of the time with people that are really experienced is that they've just taken so many more photos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we get great photos, not just because we know a little bit about composition, but we just go out so much, don't we? That's a big reason why we have good photos.
That's exactly what we talked about on the way down today. Like, half of it is simply just getting out the door.
You just need to get out. Yeah, I mean, it's just going out as much as you can. Okay, on to the next question, which is a little bit around what we were just talking about there, which is what app do you use to determine the best weather conditions? This is from Alex. I should say who the questions are from. So this is from Alex.
My favourite is one that I got from you, which is it called Venture Sky?
Yeah, it's good that, isn't it? Yeah.
Really good app. Yeah. Fantastic for even things like waves, just any type of weather or any kind of conditions.
And it's how you use the app as well, isn't it? Because I always like to think, is it going to be windy? So then go and check the coast, maybe check the swell, and look at how that's going to change. Maybe it's going to be less windy in the morning, and that might mean there might be a bit of fog. So it's how you use the apps and what you're looking for as well, which I think is important. But Venture Sky is good. Windy is similar to Venture Sky, isn't it? I don't know whether they use the same data. And then Clear Outside is another good one for predicting fog, although a lot of the time it's not right. And to get good fog, you just need usually a clear sky, low winds, and maybe a bit of rain the day before.
Yeah, fog is sort of predictable and unpredictable in equal measure, isn't it?
It is.
You have this set of parameters that you should be able to gauge or use to kind of work out whether there's going to be fog. But.
And you definitely need the temperature to hit the dew point. Also, and it's all about like learning about the weather, so that you can actually interpret the apps.
I think that this morning, wasn't it? We knew there was a chance that with the moisture in the air and everything, there could have been fog this morning. As soon as we opened the door, we knew it was too warm, and that wasn't going to happen.
Too warm and too much wind.
We should probably stick some pictures from this morning in so that people know that what we're talking about.
So the next question, which I think is a really, really good question from Philip, is what are you currently doing to improve your photography? So, you know,
following Nigel with a video camera.
yeah. It's a tricky one, that, isn't it? Because I thought about that the other day, and it's actually an idea I had for a video where I was going to do some things. One of the things that I've been doing is I've got a friend who's an artist, and I've been speaking to her about how she composes things and how she does things in her paintings. It's a little bit different as an artist because you have that, it's a little bit more creative, and she can remember the scene in 3 different sort of lights and then put that together. But it's quite interesting. I spent some time out with her, and she was sort of sketching a scene because we were thinking of doing a video together, and she was going to, and we're going to do this at some point, so she was going to, somebody will pinch this idea now, won't they? But
No.
Would never.
But she was going to paint a scene, and I was going to take a photo of the scene, and we sort of did a practice for it just to see if it would work. And I thought that was quite interesting, and I felt like I learnt a little bit about composition because she thought about things in such a different way than I did.
Yeah.
So, but I think I just try and digest as much other people's photography and not try to copy it, but just try and see why they're doing well. So like Mark Littlejohn, who's a friend that I really respect his photography and his work ethic in terms of photography. He just gets out all the time, and goes handheld, shoots handheld a lot, and I think I've learned a little bit from that because I thought, okay, I don't always need to take my tripod. Just getting out more is more important. So there's lots of things that you can do. Don't know what you guys.
I think one thing that I've been thinking about quite a lot recently is that sports people, for example, they'll have their matches, but more than that, they will train, they'll practice.
Yeah.
And as photographers, I've never really thought of the craft like that. It kind of, every time I go out, it feels like a match. It feels like, I want to go and get a result.
Actually, yeah.
And so I think often if I'm out and I have an idea in my head of the kind of thing that I want to capture, it might be kind of a 3-hour walk to get there. And I'm conscious of trying to make use of that 3 hours of time as a photographer to kind of, I don't know how you'd put it, but practice basically.
No, I think that's really important actually, because I've done that a little bit where I suppose practice is, I've not practiced like composition so much, but I've practiced like focus or something like that, where you go out and think, okay, I'm just going to go into the garden and practice focus stacking or something like that. Just a technique rather than to improve my overall skills as a photographer rather than just like saying getting better at composition.
Yeah, and I think it's particularly important with things like wildlife photography, for example, or anything where you're shooting quite a dynamic scene.
Yeah. Because
you need to know your camera inside out.
Yeah, I needed to practice more before Antarctica.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot to be said about kind of using your camera in situations where you're not necessarily going to end up with a final result that you care about. It's more about just kind of getting to know the camera and the process.
Yeah, I think something that's helped me probably over the last couple of years, and I might look at it a bit differently to you guys because I do more video stuff, but paying attention to composition in TV shows and film and stuff like that. I mean, it's always been there. I've always watched these things, but I've never really noticed it.
Yeah.
And the more I've got into this, the more I have noticed it, and that's the more I've done that, the more it's influenced my choices when I'm out shooting.
Yeah.
And I think you can get some quite good ideas from watching different things.
Yeah, it's funny. I sometimes watch films and I think, have they done that camera angle? They've done a lot of change of camera angles there and stuff. So as a videographer, it's definitely a good thing to do that.
Absolutely.
It's a slippery slope though, because you sort of, before you know it, you've completely lost track of the plot. Just paying attention to the composition. What did they say?
Yeah. I do have a knack of ruining films for people by picking apart like lighting, inaccuracies.
Shut up, Rick.
They're both backlit, but they're facing each other.
Yeah, there's no CGI on this bit though. We really are sat here.
Yeah. So what I do, it's hard to say. Like I take in a lot, like you said. For me, right now I'm in a period where I'm quite content with my edits. So I'm not really, I don't think I can improve on it. I can change it, but I'm not improving on it. However, when it comes to compositions, I'm very much aware of if I get too much the same thing. Like if I photograph lone trees, like central composition, where like 2/3 down or whatever. Like, so trying to like mix it up a little bit, trying to see if I can incorporate more elements, make a little bit more of a complex composition.
Yeah.
And when we are in a location like this, like all compositions just pop out to me. Like when I compare like where we are here and then to back home in Denmark, it learning about things in a place where it's easy, like letting the landscapes, the atmosphere and so much do the heavy lifting. We basically just have to go out, paint or point the camera in the right direction and say click. Whereas like taking all the things I learned out in the field and putting it back home in Denmark to places where you have to work a little bit more for it, finding the compositions.
What might be seen as a normal location or a boring location even, you can still get amazing things from it if you're careful and put all the things together.
Did you hear what he just said about your country? I heard the word boring.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I've said that myself.
I think you might have told me that.
I influenced you.
I'm not saying Denmark's boring. I might have said that.
You've got to be very careful with what you say on the internet.
And the thing is that what I have learned from being out is that I see all the unique things in Denmark and what I can get out of Denmark. And if I can do what I do in Denmark, I'm pretty sure most people can do whatever they do in their own countries. Like,
but I think even in a location like this where the landscape does the heavy lifting a lot, I still think like this morning when that was amazing light, there's still the shot of that amazing light and then a really well composed shot of that amazing light. You know, thinking about it really carefully. You know, where you're going to put that tree. You know, are you going to include the ridgeline or not? All those things make a big difference.
It's so funny you're saying thinking really carefully about it, because I shoot much more intuitively. Yeah. I'm just like looking at it, looks fine, click, looks fine, click, and just hammer off.
But that, I think that might be different people, because I think you might have a natural eye for landscape photography, but I suspect a lot of people are watching this maybe don't have that or are trying to learn it because, you know, it's like singing. Not everyone can sing, can they? Not everybody has got just like a really natural eye for it.
It's really scanning your scene very fast, like border patrol, do you have a subject, what's the light, find the balance, like all these things that we talk so much about in our composition videos that you have to go and watch no matter who it is. Watch our composition videos
watch
because it's like 5-6 things. Like when you have nailed that, you can make really good compositions.
No, I agree. Okay, the next question is from JKS photographer. Advice on how to capture woodlands during winter when the leaves have dropped. So that's really interesting, because I think that's like a really exciting time to capture trees, because the true sort of character of the tree, you know, comes to life. What you guys think about that? I've got an answer, but I'll let you go first.
When we're talking about winter, there's a big difference between there being snowfall,
that's right,
and not. So when it comes to snow, it's a little bit other way of thinking my photography compared to if I was shooting woodlands in summer. So it's much more about, like, as you just said, the character of the trees come out so much more. It very fast becomes much more minimal, much more simple. Don't have to deal with colors, all those things. So focus on especially the shapes of the trees. Yeah. Find the balance. If it snows, which is really, really good, put on a filter and make some long exposures, because the snowfall will over time have the same effect as fog. So you get really good depth.
Interesting. Yeah,
really good depth in your scene. And if you have like a little bit of a faster shutter speed, like 1/40th of a second, you still get the streaks of the snow. Yeah. So in that way, like, you get those nice streaks in front of the trees.
I think that looks fantastic, doesn't it? When you get the snow coming down and you just have the streaks. I love that. I really love that. And I always experiment with different shutter speeds just to try and get the streak right, that looks right in the shot. But I think with trees that have got no leaves, one of the most important things is trying to separate them from the environment. And that might be separating them in the sky, or it might be separating them, you know, against, you know, the backlit. Or, I mean, you can still have a backlit tree with no leaves. It can still look good, or side lit, so it gives it some modelling. But you've got to separate it from the environment, otherwise it just becomes a little bit muddy, doesn't it, and a bit complicated. And that's a big thing with a lot of woodland photography, which is just separating the elements within the scene a little bit, I find.
Yeah, I mean, I don't do as much woodland photography, I don't think, as you guys, but my whole philosophy in photography is just to simplify as much as possible. And I think, yeah, in winter, it's much easier to simplify a woodland scene than...
Yeah, I think that's true of every bit of photography pretty much, isn't it? It's trying to make sure that everything, even in a complex scene, has got a reason to be there. And if it hasn't got a reason to be there, then probably cut it out of the photo.
Yeah.
And I think there's quite often a case, certainly for me, when I was learning photography, as I saw a scene, I wanted to include everything, because I felt like I didn't want to cut stuff out, because that was great, the tree down there looks good as well as this tree, so I want to have everything in.
Yeah.
But often the best photos, almost always, are the ones where they're just simplified, or they've picked a bit out of the composition, or if there's got a lot in, then everything has its place.
Yeah.
So it's the same with winter trees.
The biggest compliment I get for my photos, and it's not meant as a compliment, but if someone tells me that a scene or a photo looks obvious, to me that's just perfect, because often it's not felt obvious to try and capture. But if it looks like it's been obvious, then that's the aim of the game for me, because it means it's easy to look at.
Yeah.
And that's really what I'm aiming for, whether it's woodland or not. So.
Yeah.
I'd say, again, like James, I don't do as much as you guys, but what I do is look for unique conditions and try and make the most of them. So outside of mist, heavy snow, or thick frost, I probably wouldn't do all that much. I'd look for those conditions that most people don't get to experience, and I think that's when you're going to make something that stands out a bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely true, isn't it? That's definitely true.
So I hope you're enjoying the chat so far. I just want to interrupt it, and it seems like a good point to interrupt it whilst we're talking about woodland photography, to say that I've got a new woodlands ebook out. A lot of you may have seen this already. I sent an email around on my email newsletter. But if you haven't, there's a link in the description below, and at the moment there's 50% off until the end of the month. So it talks all about how I go and find compositions, what apps I use. It's got a lot of information on composition, so whether you're using diffuse sunlight or direct sunlight or reflected light, how to find compositions, what to look for when you're looking for woodland compositions. So hopefully it'll help you at the moment as well around autumn to find better woodland compositions. Right, we'll get back to the chat. I want to say, if you're enjoying it, give it a thumbs up. This is sort of the prelude really to a podcast idea that me and Rick have had and we've been talking about for a while. So if it gets 5,000 likes, then we will definitely launch a podcast all about landscape photography and similar chats to this.
There's also another question. Do you shoot Insta-reel footage on your phone or a proper camera?
What's Insta-reel?
Reels for Instagram.
I've never made a reel in my life.
It's like,
Come on.
Seriously?
You've never made a reel on Instagram?
Have I? Maybe a couple.
Oh, I've not got it yet. Okay, James hasn't made a reel on Instagram.
Not
So
for a year or
we'll
two.
answer this question for James. Do you shoot Insta-reel footage on your phone or proper camera? You can do both. I usually put my Insta-reel stuff together afterwards, but we chat about this quite a bit, don't we? And I think that actually, if you really want to do Insta-reels a lot, and they're something if you want to promote your Instagram account, then it's probably a good thing to do because they get pushed a lot more than photos. Then I'd recommend just doing them on your phone and just talking to your phone, having it quite natural. They're the type of things that are probably going to do a little bit better than something that's too polished.
Yeah,
Would you agree
completely.
with that?
I think people are used to spotting things that are a bit too professional almost.
Yeah.
And the kind of reels, and this stems from TikToks as well. Most of the most famous TikTokers just started doing it on their mobile phones, and that's kind of transitioned over to Instagram as well. So it's more of a kind of accessibility thing and an ease of use thing, I guess. It's whatever's easiest for you, and generally a phone is easier to get something from than a camera is.
I did one where there was a fog machine in a woodland, and I just did it with my phone, said this is a fog machine in woodland, posted that as an Insta reel, and that's got my most views of any Insta reel ever.
Of course it did.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why I'm not making anymore.
I've never done a reel.
You've never done a
Have you
reel?
never done a reel?
In fact, on Instagram, for me, it when I click on reels, it explains to me what a reel is. Reels are short videos on Instagram. When you share a reel, they'll appear here. No,
That's gold.
get rid of it. No interest.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, don't bother with Insta Reels. Okay, if you enjoyed it so far, then please give it a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe, not just to me, but also to Rick. Now, Rick has got an amazing, is it comedy video, is it? Comedy video, is that the right way of describing it?
It was supposed to be funny. I
Okay.
think
We'd all like to write our own reviews.
Yeah,
yeah,
No, but it's
comedy
It's
video.
not just one video on his channel. He does some other videos as well. As doing an amazing job helping me edit. Well, doing all the editing on my videos pretty much. So make sure you subscribe to Rick, and we'll put a link somewhere. And also James, and James's channel, and also check out his reels now on Instagram, or reel.
Coming soon.
Coming soon. We'll teach him later how to upload one. And then also Mass and the amazing Denmark. No videos will come from any other places apart from Denmark going forward. That's what he's promised.
I think you need to go to Denmark.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do that.
I would love to have you come to Denmark.
Yeah, we'll
just
do
to
it.
see like how you would see if you would just be there like, what to photograph. I'll bring you to a lighthouse.
Or I'll probably go, this is so easy. I can't believe you've made it. Yeah. No, I'd love to go. I watched the next video where me and Mass are in Denmark. Okay, so there's another question is, what's your favourite, or where do you want to go, or what's your favourite destination in the world for landscape photography? Now, we could answer this a few ways, couldn't we? You could say, what's your favourite place in like Iceland, or what's your favourite place in England, or what's your favourite country? I don't know.
Denmark.
Really? Yeah, Denmark.
The thing is about
This is a person that said to me, Denmark's boring. I know I've said that twice now in the video. 4 years ago.
No, of course there's locations outside of Denmark I want to go to, but I'm just in a period right now where I just so enjoy doing all the research, all the legwork, and wait for the right conditions and go out and take world-class photos in a country that is not perceived as a particularly good landscape
amazing.
Photography country. It's just gives me so much. I really enjoy that process. And like it feels so wrong to say it, but when I go to Iceland, I go to the Faroes, or even here, like it's the landscape does the work for me. It's just show up and like point your camera and it's good. So in that way, even though I come away with amazing photos, I really enjoy the process in Denmark. But I really have to go outside of Denmark, places I really want to go I haven't been to yet. Patagonia, obviously, Canada, Western Canada, really. Probably there. Yeah.
Anything else?
Pacific Northwest for me. I went there when I was 2, so I don't really remember it. But
What was it like?
It was. I think I slept a lot.
You don't really remember it.
Well, no, I don't remember it at all. We've got family videos and pictures from it, so it's always kind of been in the back of my mind. But I don't know what it is. I've just got a real pull to go there. I think it's the forests and the huge trees they've got there, the fog, the beaches, all the rock formations on the beaches, the mountains, the volcanoes. If I could go anywhere now, that's where it would be.
Like Mass, really. At the minute, I love being at home. And
This is your home.
Well, yeah, I'm not this building isn't my house, but I love being in Wales, and it's a lot easier than many places to take photos here, but it can be quite hard work at the same time. And you're right that
We don't have any sympathy for you whatsoever.
the chase for photos and kind of the joy of being able to do it kind of quite close to where you live is really nice. Aside from that, the poles, I would say.
Yeah.
The Arctic, Antarctic. Mostly because, like I said before, I like to simplify my images, and I don't think there's anywhere easier to do that than places that are just ice. And
I think it's amazing there, isn't it? There's always a draw to places like that, and they are, I think, like Patagonia and all those types of places are amazing because they do produce. You're going to get good photos if you go there. You know, almost whatever the conditions, you'll get good photos. I actually don't have a location, but our woodland is my favourite location. I really, really enjoy woodland photography. If I could do any photography, if I could only do any one type of photography forever, it would be woodland photography.
Right.
I'd just be totally happy with that. And that's probably not what everybody is, but it's almost like my hobby. So my hobby now is woodland photography, and my job is landscape photography. But I enjoy everything. I enjoy going on a mountain, that's fantastic and whatever, but I just find woodland photography really fascinating. And I find it fascinating because it's a bit like you with Denmark. I think you've got to research a lot. It's not always that easy. And you always find really unique compositions that nobody's ever found before, because it's just a tree in the middle of a woodland.
Yeah.
You know, it's nothing special really.
Yeah.
And I quite like that.
But you make it special.
You make it special,
With
and you have to
composition and
return
light
again and
and-
again. So usually it's quite local, and you just go
yeah.
back again and again and again. There's one woodland that I've gone to hundreds of times, and I still think there's multiple compositions to get there,
Yeah.
which I think is quite exciting.
So that's one thing I've noticed. I don't know if it's the same for you guys, but on the kind of subject of liking kind of shooting close to home, I feel like the photos that I've got that I'm proud of, that I've taken here within kind of an hour radius of where I live, I have such a sort of closer relationship to those photos than I do other shots in my portfolio that other people might much prefer. Like, I might sell many times more prints of those other images.
Yeah.
But my personal feeling towards the ones that I've got close to home, they'll always mean so much more to me, because, as you say, it's been a process of going back 6-7 times on my own. It's not a snapshot that I've managed to take along with 10 other tourists.
It's exactly the same for me, and the main reason why I really enjoy Denmark is that they are so much more relatable. It's like the closer I can get to my childhood home and around where I grew up, basically the better the photo. Even though it's not like, better on the photography objective ways of determining a good photo.
For you.
But for me, yeah.
Which is the most important thing at the end of the day, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think if you should do photography for yourself, and if you produce stuff that other people like, then that's great, isn't it? But as long as you enjoy doing it yourself, I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
I think the only reliable judge you have for how good your photos are is yourself.
Yeah.
I think, personally.
Okay, last question. And this is, how would you advise somebody to make money from photography if they're just starting out?
Don't think about it.
It's a question. The reason I said that is a question that I get asked so often. Like, people say, I'm just starting out in photography and I want to make money from it. And what would you advise for that?
My main advice is, do not think about money to begin with. You cannot just start out in photography and then expect to earn money from it. If you do portrait photography, you have to learn portrait photography, lighting, composition, all those things first. Enjoy the process of learning it. If you do not enjoy it, if you do it for the sake of money instead of for the sake of the product of the photo, then you will not make it. I promise you won't make it. Don't think about money. Money comes later.
But some people might have got to the point where they're reasonably good at photography, they're really enjoying it, and they think, okay, and there's quite a lot of people like this, isn't there, that think that's the dream, doing what we do. We're really lucky, aren't we? We go out, we were saying it this morning when we were hiking up there, I can't believe this is our job. And that...
We worked our butts off for it.
Well, of course we do, yeah. We work really,
so
they
much.
never stop working. But it's still a good job, isn't it?
It is.
And I think that a lot of people that get into landscape photography think, I'd love to be able to do it as a living. I'd love to be able to do that. And it's... The thing is, it's difficult, isn't it? Is there a way into it other than YouTube?
Well, I'm asked it a lot as well. And the first thing that I say when someone says, I want to earn money from photography, I'll say, are you sure?
Yeah.
Because in many cases, and not all cases, I think we are perhaps exceptions, and that might be because of YouTube, but in many cases, it will cost you your hobby. As soon as you put pressure for bills, mortgage, whatever it might be, as soon as your hobby is responsible for paying for those things, there's a responsibility there, and that it changes things. It definitely does. Certainly in the early days. Practically speaking, I think YouTube has been, for all of us, YouTube has been a fantastic way to go.
But YouTube has, but I think, I don't know is what it's like for you, but for me, and I can see other people doing this. I think the guy coming later called Jack Lodge is a good example that he's done a very good transition where, you know, he's shown his enthusiasm for the hobby, printed things out, and then started selling prints, and then started running workshops. I think workshops is probably the thing, but you've got to be knowledgeable. You've got to know what you're doing to do a workshop. Otherwise, you're not going to give anybody any value. But that's how I did it as well. You know, I made my money from photography, selling prints and running workshops before I started making money from YouTube. My first year and a half from YouTube, I earned virtually nothing.
But the easiest way to think about it is, one, you need to figure out what your product is.
Yeah.
So it can be prints, presets, editing stuff, tutorials, educational material, so many other services, whatever.
So many things.
Yeah. And then afterwards, you need to build up a potential customer base.
Yeah.
So you can do it with email newsletters, like people having to subscribe, Instagram, YouTube, like everything that collects people in. So you can get out to people.
Yeah, but I think they're really valuable things, but there's a lot of people that don't know how to do that, and I think it'd be really useful for people watching this to know those sort of things. But I think knowing what your customer base is really important.
You are transitioning from an artist, you're still an artist, into a business person.
Yeah.
Learn business.
That's the one thing I would say. The most successful photographers I know, including you guys, are even better marketers than they are photographers.
Yeah.
Photography is a secondary thing.
Yeah, marketing.
Look at Peter Lick as a fine example of that.
Yeah. Well,
absolutely.
But
there's so many like that, aren't there? There's so many photographers that you might look at their photos and think, oh, I can shoot better than them, but it's exactly that, isn't it? But they're marketing their products better than you are, and that's why they're doing well.
I feel like I make a living from photography. There must be countless people in the world much better at photography than I am, but they don't market their photos, and so
no, that's right.
It's
I feel exactly the same as well, and I'm sure people look at my photo and say I can take photos better than you, but it's about knowing what your product is, and ours is probably YouTube now, isn't it? That's our product, and then there's secondary products around that.
There's a big psychological factor in it also, that you have to get over the hurdle of selling yourself.
Yeah.
Like, and knowing your worth.
Yeah.
That time is money, and it took me so long from I made my first YouTube videos until I actually had my first product, and it was only thanks to you. Like, Mads, you have a product right there. Trying to put it together.
Yeah.
So. And it is so nerve-wracking making your first product. Like,
you feel imposter syndrome as well, don't you? Because you think nobody's going to want to buy this.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I'm sat here with you three who have got probably 2 million followers across all platforms. But I think I come at this from a very different point of view to you. A very different journey into it, and it's like Matt was just saying then. It's patience. You've just got to have patience, and as hard as it is at times, you've got to have the belief in yourself as well. So I started off with an interest in landscape photography. That's how I got into it. And then after a while, a few people said, oh, that's quite good. You could probably make money doing from this. And all of a sudden the light bulb goes off and you think, right, well, how can I make money from it? And I used to shoot weddings. I used to do portrait sessions with kids and all sorts. And I just didn't like it. It just wasn't me, but I still did it. I'm kind of glad I did, because I know that experience then has led me to being where I am now, working with you and doing something I love, and then growing my own stuff as well.
Yeah.
So you've got to be careful, like James said, as what you said yes to. I spent 4 years working and running a studio, and it got to the point in there where I was just doing stuff every day. Yes, it was photography. Yes, it was video. But did I enjoy what I was actually doing, the subject matter? No.
And you have to do it because you've got bills to pay, like you said, don't you? So you end up doing something you might not enjoy. So it's not all so rosy, is it?
No. And I ended up, I never went out with my camera outside of work, because I grew to hate it, because I'd basically sold myself out, I suppose, to make sure that photography was my job.
And that's the thing, we have to also emphasize that it's a very gradual thing. That's why we use the word grow over time. Like, nobody is saying that you should jump from being a full-time bartender into being a full-time landscape photographer. It's not how it works. Like, take less hours at one job. You still have to pay your bills. Like, we all have to.
So much time, doesn't it?
It does. And you need to have the happiness doing what it is you're doing. Then gradually figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
There is no, like, set
No.
course.
But I think all those things we said there are pretty good. I think that they're really valuable advice. So
Yeah. So just one final thing. I'd say very few people are talented enough for their photos to speak for themselves.
Absolutely.
You need to build a story around those photos, and it doesn't have to be YouTube.
That's so important. That story around a photo is actually more important than the photo itself, almost, isn't it?
It doesn't have to be YouTube. It doesn't have to be an email list, but you need a way to communicate what it is about your photos that people should care about.
Such a good way of saying it. Great, well I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks ever so much for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to everybody. See you next video.